dark side of psychology. I'm your host, Cameron Falcons, and your co-host,
Justin Nilsson.
That's right.
We have a couple things to get into before we break it down. First and foremost, thank you, Michaela, for your research. It was very helpful and insightful for this episode. Happy birthday, Michaela's
birthday to
mom.
Michaela's mom. That's right.
Yeah.
It's the one caveat.
And it's finally happened, fans.
Complexify that for me.
We got the
Got
button.
the button. That's
We
right.
had the batteries and the button in the same place.
Finally. Took way too long. Oh, that's gonna be great. I hope we use that.
I'm probably gonna force it. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. You gotta force it the first episode.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
But,
all right.
Take it away, partner.
All right. So today we're gonna be talking about the Stanford prison experiments. Oh yeah. That's
I've got
fun.
one question for you.
Oh god.
Complexify that for me.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to be complexifying the Stanford prison experiments, which were obviously conducted on Stanford soil. And they were conducted by one Philip George Zimbardo.
Fucking asshole.
What a guy, right? What a guy.
He's his credentials. He is a psychologist, sociologist, and anthropologist. Taught at Yale from 1950 to 1960, an NYU professor until 67, and became a professor of psychology in 1968.
At Stanford.
But this shithead wrote a physics book.
Yeah, later on in his life, he what was it? It was
Something about time.
yeah, he was writing something about time later on in his life after the Stanford prison experiments.
Watch us completely be wrong, and it's like a whole ass psychology
Yeah,
novel, and we're just being
it
assholes.
probably is, but I think it's funny, like, to think like, oh, this sociologist is writing a physics book. What a goat! I mean, shit. I mean,
Sociology was a pretty fun class. Not gonna lie.
yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't taken one. I haven't taken any psychology or sociology classes. I'm taking anthropology as it is right now, and it's pretty cool.
I
love
haven't
anthropology.
taken anthropology, but I've taken plenty of psychology and one sociology course.
Nice. Well, I bet it wasn't at Yale, Stanford, or NYU. Idiot.
You don't know me.
You're just so dumb, dude. You're such an idiot, bro. All right. ABC student speaking.
Yeah. COC gang right here. What am I? I think I'm a cougar.
God damn it. All right. So he was a professor of psychology at Stanford in 1968, and then in 1971, he became really interested in how U.S. prisons fostered the guard-prisoner hatred in the purest sense. Right?
So like you guys ever seen like people talk about how just the conditions in jail are just awful because the guards are like pieces of shit.
Like tyrannical, like straight
Yeah.
up.
And he wanted to see if it was that like as a result of the power given to the guards or just the prisoner's criminal nature that caused such a polarizing inherent hate between the two of them.
Yeah. So the question was, is it the situation they find themselves in that drives that insanity, or is it the individual people themselves that are responsible for that hatred? Specifically, the prisoners for being just, morally different than the average person, or is it the guards for having that power, right?
And
is it the role that they're playing that drives that, or is it the individuals that drive that, essentially?
Psychologically, again, thank you, Michaela. This experiment is a really good example of reduced self-awareness, and it doesn't necessarily always produce bad behavior, but essentially what reduced self-awareness is if you are in a group or mob behavior, you are less likely to stand out from said group, even if that means throwing your moral compass away.
Yeah, like compromising your morals is less important than conforming to the group.
Yeah.
Right, if I'm summing that up
because you don't want to be outcasted from the group.
yeah, it's more important to you to be included than to be morally
Yeah.
morally whatever.
Like we said earlier, there was plenty of polarization between the groups, and actually, during the evening hours of this experiment, it was determined that the guards were much more aggressive because they were under the impression that they weren't being monitored.
Yeah, and that has to do with the what was it? I can't remember what it was. The if you know someone is like observing you and you know that you don't have any consequence, like that influences.
Anonymity.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And don't make me say it. And
Don't do that.
anonymity.
Don't give me hope.
Anonymity? Is that right?
Yeah.
There we go. I'm not gonna do that ever again. And
Hey, we got it. We got it.
Anonymity.
We got it recorded, so you don't have to.
Let's go, dude. Typical STEM major, can't even read.
Fuck. Now, what the experiment is as a whole. Well, okay. Getting into the experiment now that we've broken down some of the foreknowledge.
Yes.
Zimbardo would pick university students at random and offered to pay them $15 a day, or in today's money, $111 a day for 2 weeks.
Pretty solid.
75 men applied. Oh, and they all had to be white middle-class men with all similar backgrounds.
As in, they had no previous like confrontations with the law. They have no mental XYZ problems,
And there wouldn't be any like financial or social problems, because if they're all, average middle class, no one's more rich or poor compared, so there's no like singling out in that respect.
Yeah.
Essentially, his best attempt to remove bias, even though he actively took part in this experiment. But anyways, out of the 75 men, 24 of them were selected. One of the prisoner group and one of guard group, and there were 6 remainders. So it was 9 guards, 9 prisoners, and then 3 substitutes for both sides.
Yes. Yeah. And straight away, when it came to signing up for this experiment, the prisoners and the guard groups were just already selected, and they were each given certain amounts of knowledge.
Like, they all knew that they were going to be in an experiment
and revolving around studying prisoners.
Day-in-the-day life of the prison system.
Yes.
But they didn't know the extent of it. All of them didn't. But the guards did have a little bit more knowledge in the beforehand, because the day before they had to be issued their uniforms and their, accessories. Like, they had to have glasses that were completely reflection-proof, so they couldn't make eye contact with the guards, and they were given wooden batons and, yeah.
Yeah, no, they were given enough things to put together what the experiment was going to be about. Yeah, and they were, like you said, just told to essentially maintain order. They were put in charge of meals, work, and the recreation of the prisoners. And it didn't matter at all what the well, not at all. I think there was certain limits that they were given, but for the most part, the guards were solely in charge of how they would go about it, right?
And you already discussed about the prisoners' civil liberties, correct?
Yeah. So not yet. Sorry.
Okay.
So the prisoners were promised that they would not be abused physically, and that they would have no civil liberties for the duration of the experiment, which was 1 to 2 weeks. And they were told that they were called up one day, and they were told that they had to be home on a certain Sunday to be arrested.
it was they had to be home on August 15th, and
August
just
15th.
when they were called. Yeah. Now, so how day one started was they received a call from Zimbardo, and he was like, "Hey, yo, you're going to get arrested today."
Yeah.
And so then they get arrested in public. Bystanders went and watched, and
it was recorded.
yeah,
With camera.
and they were charged with like armed robbery and possession and
Yeah.
whatnot, just random stuff. And then, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Then the prisoners arrived to the mock prison, and after they were arrested, they were then blindfolded and taken to the mock prison, where they were then stripped naked, given mug shots, and told to stand in the yard like butt naked for
Yeah.
like
A little bit.
a certain period of time before they were thrown into a cell.
I mean, they had their outfits and stuff with them to change into at the time.
Yeah, like
It wasn't until later that they lost their clothes privileges.
Oh yeah. Anyways, there were three-person cells, 6 by 9 feet, and the solitary confinement was literally like the size of a coffin. It was just 2 feet by 2 feet by 7 feet. The cells had a mattress, a pillow, a sheet, and a cot to put the mattress on. And it was specifically designed to where they didn't see any windows, so they would lose track of time, what day it is.
I believe it was in one of the basements at Stanford.
Yeah.
Like, it was somewhere deeper down, yeah, like you said, so they can't understand time to sort of simulate
And then
prison.
the guards actually created rules, and they were all given ID numbers, which were their new names, and they were exercised to memorize their ID numbers and the rules that the prison guards created themselves, and they had to they were tested on that 3 times a day. Every time there was a shift change with the guards, they were allowed work time, exercise time, and 2 visit periods per week, and 10 minutes max.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the end of day 1. They, went to bed. It was all that.
Wasn't there... Oh, never mind. That was day 2.
Yeah, and now
Day 2 is when the interesting shit happens.
we enter day 2, where shit immediately starts going downhill, like straight up. The prisoners were abruptly awoken by the guards at fucking 2 a.m.
Ugh, can you imagine that? Like, no knowledge that they were going to wake up that early.
Just fucking, all right,
Rise and shine.
rise and shine, maggots, get the fuck out of bed. Just mean.
Yeah.
Anyways, they weren't taken seriously and deliberately disobeyed orders. And so like they were ripping off their ID tags. They were
Barricading the yard.
themselves in the room. Just like, this is at 2 a.m. on the second day. Just
Yeah.
immediately shit hits
Like,
the fan.
not even 12 hours has passed since they went to bed. Like,
Literally.
but
And so they, oh my god, that reminds me, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. This reminds me, when I was in the army, I didn't go to bed till 2 a.m,
Ugh.
my first night, and then they had my ass wake up at fucking 4 a.m.
nice.
It was literally the worst. And then, like, people kept coming into the room because more people were arriving.
Yeah.
I was so tired, bro. Anyways, okay. And the prisoners essentially started a rebellion.
Yeah. And so the rebellion was essentially what we saw. It was, they would barricade the rooms, they would disobey orders directly, and it overwhelmed the guards. And so eventually the guards would call in their subs. I believe all 3 of them were called at this point.
Can you
Complexify that for me.
what are the
what's-
subs?
So the subs, remember we discussed earlier that there was 6 extra people, and 3 of them were subs for the prisoners, and 3 were subs for the guards. And so they just, at the second day during these rebellions, they said, okay, this is too much work to deal with this. We need all 3 of our subs to come in. So I believe it was all 3 subs that came in right now. So they were basically a part of the experiment now. No longer subs, but just, it was, instead of 9 guards, it was 12 guards and 9 prisoners.
And the guards actually ended up having to use fire extinguishers to combat the rebellion.
Yeah. They,
Stripped them naked, took
yeah,
out
they
their
took out
mattresses,
their clothes privileges, took out their mattresses,
sent some of them to the hole.
which was the solitary confinement. for clarification. And they used psychological, what am I trying to say? Psychological methods
to prevent rebellion.
To prevent rebellion from happening again. And yeah, that's when it started to be taking away the clothes from them, taking away their beds, which was all they had in the cells. There was nothing but a bed and a bucket.
And then it actually caused one prisoner to have a full-fledged mental breakdown. And so then Zimbardo was all like, hey, yo, you can go home or you can stay and, be treated better as an informant.
Well, no, this one straight up left.
Well, no, I know. It was just an offer. Like, Zimbardo offered it for him
that
to
was
be...
That was the second one. The second mental breakdown.
He offered it to both, but this dude was like, nah, fuck that.
Oh, okay. Bet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he offered him to become an informant, and the dude was like, nah.
I'm going home.
Yeah, fuck this. So...
yeah, it was pretty rough.
And then you go ahead.
So he went home, and then they brought in one of the prisoner subs. So day 2, and already a prisoner left, and all of the sub guards had to be taken in to take care of the 9 prisoners.
And then okay, now this is where it gets pretty like the nitty gritty of how fucked up these guards were. So the 3 prisoners that were least involved in the rebellion were treated nicely. They were sent to a different cell that let them have their beds, their clothes. Oh yeah, the other guys didn't have their clothes.
Yeah.
They were allowed to shower and brush their teeth. And then they were also allowed to eat like nicer food in front of the ones that incited the rebellion.
The guards did this, by the way. So nothing that happened during this first day was encouraged or done by the people running the experiment. At this point, it was purely the guards that did all this.
Yeah.
They were granted being sort of encouraged by some of the, by Zimbardo and his associates to be like, okay, you got to be tough on these prisoners. Just kind of lightly but they didn't say like, okay, use a fire extinguisher to fuck them up. Like, this was purely the guards that decided to do most of this.
Hey, do you see that fire extinguisher over there?
I mean, they're college students, so I mean, I would expect nothing less.
Oh yeah. I was actually a part of a training when I was in the Army. When I was being sent home, they had us part of this like training for people who were doing polygraphs, right? So I was actually a part of a mock bank robbery. And I was the only one who took that shit seriously. I went in and I was like, everyone on the fucking ground now. And the dude sitting behind the phone was like, oh wow, you're braver than the last group. And he put the phone down and I was like, shut the fuck up, where's the money at? He was like, I don't know. And everyone else is scramming for it and he's like, you guys are really bad. I was like, did I say you could talk? And it was so fucking funny. Yeah. And so then I leave and all the like drill sergeants and like the people working there for like the Army's Secret Service were like, wow, you took that role pretty seriously, good job. And everyone in line were like, what the fuck was that about? Like, do you want us to get in trouble? Because they're all afraid. I was like, hey, I was told, like, I promise you, if some dude was making fun of me while I'm robbing his bank, he's getting his shit fucked up. Like, I would have hit him with a pistol if I could have.
On God,
and then they had me do the polygraph thing, and obviously it said I lied when I said I didn't rob that bank.
Yep.
Anyways.
You know those things are complete BS. By the
Actually, I learned, like, I as physically a part of said polygraph can 100% say that they are not BS even in the slightest.
But they are.
Nah, because look here.
Even the guy who made them said that they were inaccurate and should not be used to determine cases.
No, so when I was in said polygraph, right? They asked me a bunch of control questions. And in one of the control questions, it was like, have you ever lied to anyone you love? And I'm pretty sure everyone's lied to their parents or anything. And so I was like, no, not at all. And it came up that I also lied during that. And he questioned me about that. It wasn't even me saying that I didn't rob the bank. It was me saying that I like I lied about, lying to people that I loved, and that was also flagged. He showed me where it was flagged and
it
everything.
doesn't matter if you've done it or not. If you know that you've done it and you chose to say yes, then it might show up. But if you know that you've done it and you told the truth, then nothing would have happened.
Exactly.
But you made it sound like you were like, oh yeah, but you weren't told to lie. You just lied.
Yeah. No, but I was told to lie about the bank robbery, because obviously you're not going to admit to the bank robbery.
Of course.
But then I chose to lie when saying, because I'm super, I want people to think that I'm a good person. So I was like, no, I've never lied to anyone that loves me.
Right.
But obviously everyone's lied to, their parents, brothers, sisters at some point. And what specifically came to my mind was a specific lie that I told Joey one time. And so I said, no, I've never lied to anyone like that. I loved.
That's the thing, though.
And
like,
it showed up that I was lying when I said that when I had a second lie in there when I shouldn't have. So I can specifically say it was an uncontrolled, it wasn't part of the the training even slightly, and it still showed up. So I can testify that those things are 100% true. Do I want them used in court? Fuck no, because if I'm going to lie about some shit, I don't want to be strapped to a polygraph because I know them shits are accurate.
That's the thing, they're not. You can take literally a 30-minute course and just learn to cheat them. And criminals do that. You know how many criminals have gotten away by just being chill?
Well, no shit.
They're not 100% accurate, and they're not reliable like that.
No, but
they can be. They can tell the truth, and they can not.
If you have no foreknowledge of how to trick one, then it's fairly accurate.
No. It works sometimes. It's not 100%. Like that, you get what I mean. It can't determine cases, because if it was 100% accurate, then it'd be like, did you do this? No? Okay.
That's why they don't use them in
bye.
That's why they don't use them in cases
they're inaccurate.
unless it's voluntary. So you can say yes or no to a polygraph.
And that's the thing. If they worked 100%, then you wouldn't be able to say no.
Exactly.
They're just inaccurate.
I guess that's a good point. I can't testify
like
that
they're not consistent. It may have worked for you, but the next guy behind you could have been hella stressed, told the truth, and it came up as a lie. Person before you might have been hella chill, lied, and gotten away with it.
If you're stressed the entire way through, it monitors that you're stressed, and it will still have a different response if you consciously lie. Because there's like a physical change in your blood pressure because of it.
Dude, I'll be telling the truth sometimes and be like, was that a lie? And you can feel your heart skipping. You've done that before, right?
Yeah.
Where you're yeah, I've totally done that. Did I do that? Yeah, I did that.
But you said, that's why they shouldn't be used to determine cases. But I could say, like, in my experience, it worked 100%.
Interesting.
Sorry about that tangent, podcast family. It was just, I felt like it related. Sorry.
Which, I mean, they did ask, not to a polygraph, but they did ask the prisoners and guards, like, a questionnaire before and after.
Yeah.
Just to get, like, personality tests, just to see if the certain personalities were more inclined to something. But I don't think that came out to anything particularly interesting.
So personality tests are mainly given to determine whether they're mentally stable enough to be doing something like that or not. So like they could
Oh, you're an ENTP, bro? You gotta leave. That's not the one. That's not the personality test they take, I'm assuming. But that would be funny.
Anyways.
Okay. So the 3 prisoners that were not part of the riots were sent to nicer cells, got their clothes back, got their beds back, brushed their teeth, nicer meals made to eat in front of other prisoners to just get those other prisoners pissed off.
Oh yeah, and then half a day later, the good ones were returned, and then the rest of the prisoners were suspicious that they were informants, like whatever the prisoners were talking about amongst themselves.
What was the deal going on there?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is interesting because you can already see this like psychological, like, okay, what's the bad thing about being an informant? If they're all innocent college students part of this experiment, what in their brain is like, it's a bad thing that they're telling us that they're snitching us out?
To me, it seems like traitorous nature, because it was already so polarized that and then it
exactly
it gets so polarized
fast.
that you'd much rather remove yourself from the situation and not get paid that money than throw your guys under the bus.
That's right.
Because then you have the guards and the prisoners shitting on you.
We're gonna find out later about that. What happens when that happens?
So that concludes. One more thing. At night, instead of them being escorted to the bathroom, they were told to use a bucket.
Yeah, so they started to use buckets instead of bathrooms, which, by the way, if they were escorted to the bathroom, they had to be blindfolded just to further simulate that, like,
Oh, yeah.
disorientation.
Because they could be like, oh, yeah, I totally got to take a shit, and then look out a window and think,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, it's noon.
Exactly. You get your noon shits.
Day 3.
Day 3, visitor day. And to
Ooh.
hide the fact that these prisoners were mistreated, they had the prisoners, and I believe it was the guards that did this. They had the prisoners cleaned,
Showered,
shaved, fed, to look nice and pretty for the parents and family visiting. And as we said earlier, it's only permitted 10 minutes per visitors,
And
which
then 2 visitors per prisoner, and with the guard, like, monitoring.
yes, exactly. And again, the guards were the ones who set up all of that. I'm not sure about the clean shaved, that might have been incentivized, but everything else, like how this whole thing was going to operate, the guards came up with it. So you can see already this, like, institutionalization, like these like strict guidelines forming despite them having like an imaginary role.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty interesting.
And then after the visitation hour, word was that the prisoner that left earlier was coming back for, like, a big breakout.
Yeah.
And so all of the prisoners were then escorted with bags over their heads to a storage room on the 5th level.
And this information was found out by an actual informant that Zimbardo put into the experiment.
And so Zimbardo heard about the rumor from said informant, and then
He was like, oh, hell no.
so then he disassembled the prison and waited in the prison room until said, like, former prisoner would return.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Never happened. So he just compromised the entire experiment off of a rumor. And this is kind of the point where, I mean, I guess day 1 and 2 were kind of
I personally think this whole experiment from start to finish
Yeah.
is pretty biased.
It was fairly biased, but it was really at this point that he should have ended it and restarted.
Oh yeah.
Because the experiment had clearly been tampered with. Things changed. They were moved out of the experiment room, meaning they were, like, the experiment's compromised now.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
they might have seen what time of day it was. They might have chatted up a little bit in that storage room they were put in. Like, all sorts of things could have happened during that. It wasn't expressly, like, monitored. So you gotta just find new people, like, because now it's compromised. But he continued anyway. He went back. They all went back to the prison room, and waited in. They all went back in the prisoner room at the end of the day, and continued the experiment as normal. So from here on out, it's like, this is completely compromised experiment.
yeah.
Like, so for the next few days are gonna be.
Day 4.
Yeah, let's just move on.
A Catholic priest and clergy member interviewed the prisoners. They introduced themselves by their numbers rather than their names, and it just was like a pure example of how their individualism had been completely stripped from them in the span of only 3 days.
Yeah.
One prisoner in specific wanted a doctor instead, and insisted and refused to speak with the priest until inevitably he ended up speaking with the priest, and he had some medical issues that he wanted, worked out, blah blah blah. And then the guards, when he spoke with the priest, he was expressing his medical issues, and he ended up going home early. And the guards made the other prisoners chant that prisoner was a bad prisoner.
Yeah.
And like say really hurtful things because he was going home early. And that made this fool also have a mental breakdown. He started sobbing.
Yeah.
And so then he was
He's like, no, I can stay. I can prove I'm a good prisoner.
yeah, like he can prove
for
he's
this, like, he knows it's an experiment. He knows it doesn't really matter.
And then-
but his brain is just
Yeah.
still telling him, like, this is important. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
And then Zimbardo was like, "Ayo, like, this is another instance where the experiment should have been stopped, but he was like, "Hey, yo, remember this is an experiment. Like, you could leave if you want."
Yeah.
And so then he left and was replaced by a backup, and that backup actually went in as a informant.
Yeah, and this was a legit informant this time. And so this informant was put in, and losing my train of thought.
Then day 5 happens, and oh wait, day 4, all of the the clergy member made a good point. They all need a lawyer.
That's right. That's right.
And so then on day 5 visiting again? Yeah, day 5 was visiting again. So on day 5, it was another visiting day, and the like family members of said people were they were insisting to Zimbardo that they needed to get a lawyer. So they were all appointed one lawyer, and they had a big parole hearing. And so then they were offered to get parole if they traded in all the cash that they had earned so far to go home.
Which, remember, they were getting paid today's equivalent of $111 a day, and this is their 5th day. So they're trading in
like over $500.
Yeah, well over $500.
And they
around 550 or 560-ish.
It'd be 555 if it's all 111.
Yeah, that's right.
And so in said, that question, it was unanimous. All of them said, yeah, like, keep the money, let us go home. And
Which was the whole reason they were there.
Yeah.
They knew that they were going to get paid to do this. That's what the guards and prisoners had in common, was they were here to get paid. And they were willing to trade that. At this point, it was clear that their reality was, like, distorted. Like,
oh, yeah.
They thought they were actually prisoners negotiating a parole. Like, they weren't thinking like college students anymore. They were thinking like prisoners. Like,
yeah.
They were like, okay, yeah, I'm going to trade in the reason I'm here to leave.
And then, so their reality was so warped that they followed all orders without questions and felt like honest prisoners. And there were 3 types of guards throughout this experiment. There were soft guards that were, pretty sympathetic towards, what the prisoners were going through. Tough guards that were like, they were like fair but, mean, kind of like a shitty teacher in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then the asshole guards are sadistic motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And who were just ruthless and, often broke the rules.
Really just abused their power. Were really enjoying it. And
antisocial behavior ended up reprising on
the prisoners.
On the prisoners.
The prisoners all started being less social, so really introverted. They didn't socialize with each other that much. Yeah.
And now prisoner 416.
And he was the stand-in
from the day before. He went on a hunger strike. Guards and prisoners disliked this, and everyone was punished for it.
Yep.
The guards tried to make him eat, and he wouldn't, and then they said, oh yeah, no, the prisoners were supposed to tell him that he needed to eat or they would all get punished.
Yep.
And he still wouldn't, and then they tied him up or something to try and get him to eat.
I'm not sure what they did to try to force him to eat, but I just know they definitely punished him when he still didn't eat.
And so then he chose not to eat, and so then they sent him so then visitors were no longer allowed. And so then the prisoners cursed and hated him, and he was sent to the hole for 3 hours, and 1 was the limit.
So you can tell at this point that the asshole guards are the ones in control, because the other guards were just pushovers at this point, because they were the only ones that would be like, no, like our limit was 1 hour. So the people abusing their power are the ones in power now.
Oh yeah,
it's just like Putin.
And then the shitty ass guard offered all the prisoners, if they wanted to keep their bedding for the night, but 416 had to be in solitary confinement all night, or no bedding, and he got to go back to his cell. And they all voted to keep their bedding and him stay in solitary.
That's right.
And so
this leads to that mob mentality sort of thing, right? the mob behavior. So they're thinking as a group now, and this 416 is an exile from their prisoner group. And so that's that reduced sense of self-awareness, right? So instead of thinking about yourself and your morals, you're thinking about the crowd as oneself and the crowd's morals, and they're all agreeing, like the crowd, like that's their entity, and then the other prisoner, 416, was ruining things for them, so that they were thinking as a crowd, not as empathetic beings.
Oh yeah.
And they were like, yeah, no,
They're
we're
probably
gonna banish
all
this
like, oh
fool.
yeah, we shouldn't be punished for his fuck ups. He made this decision himself. Blah blah
Exactly.
blah blah blah.
Exactly.
Arguably
It's
though,
that tribal thinking, right?
his fucking his hunger strike actually bore fruit. Well,
yeah.
okay, sort of, kinda, because
Yeah.
then on the 5th day, Christina.
because there was no more like visiting time, the parents were concerned and wanted to actually get, like, they were like, all right, Mr. What was the fool's name? Zimbardo, Mr. Zimbardo, I want to see some lawyers. Like this, I haven't seen my kid.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to today.
And that's when, we get the whole parole
Yep.
bullshit, and then enter Christina Maslach, who was a PhD student, and
She recently graduated.
Yeah, she had recently graduated, and actually a year later would marry Zimbardo.
Yeah. Which is pretty interesting, because I think she knew him already at this point.
Yeah, I mean the way that she said that he was talking, it was implying that they were like together,
Yeah.
or like
You
headed
changed.
towards getting together.
Yeah.
Because then she claimed that the study was immoral and that he had changed due to power, and then he was like, "Oh,
Well,
it's over."
It's over. Yeah, he clicked the button because, like she said, like
Wait, you said he clicked the button?
Complexify that for me.
So yeah, she said that he was, sort of I'm looking for it, corrupted by his
Yeah.
power, because again, he was a part of this experiment. He played the role of basically not the warden, but like the warden. Like
Yeah.
he was kind of the top of the chain.
It was like the superintendent. He had a
Yes.
warden under him, but he was like who the warden would go and talk to.
Exactly. So he was a part of this experiment too. So he was compromised, which, of course, compromises the entire experiment. So it's just
he
really
could totally
bad science.
influence, what he wants.
He exactly. And if he's a part of the experiment, he's now testing his own psychological behavior, which is going to be distorted, like our Christina
Yeah.
says, that he himself was distorted by his own experiment. And then he was like, you know what, you might be onto something. And on the 6th day, they canceled the study.
And there were 3 meetings done between just the guards, just the inmates, and then both of them in like a co-ed thing, so they could like kind of hash out what like what bad blood was done between them, try and
Yeah.
reach like a formal
Bring back their psychological health.
And as a result of that, as a result of his issues as a as a psychologist,
As
and
a
his
scientist, bro.
his failings, he paid them the full amount for the 2 weeks, even though it was only 6 days, which amounts to about $1,400 our money.
Yeah,
Which is pretty cool.
$1,400. So yeah, they got paid more. I mean, and that's the thing. It's 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
So they're there 24 hours in the day. So you're thinking, oh, $111 a day, not bad. But you're
Divide that by 20. But
24 hours, yeah, like you're getting paid like $1 the hour.
I
Like,
did the math when I was in the Army, and how much I was being paid an hour was like $7.
you're serving your country. You better be grateful. It's an experience.
Anyways, so naturally this experiment had a severe amount of criticisms,
Oh yeah.
because there was just a bunch of risks to the prisoners.
Well,
and-
so first, real quick, the conclusion of this study was that, the prison itself, the prison setting itself, was responsible for the outcome of hate and violence between the guards and the prisoners. Zimbardo attributed it to situational attribution. In other words, the situation that they were in, the prison, right, the roles they're given, inherently affects how they act. That was his conclusion. That if you're given a title, if you're given this role, and you're put in this in a certain circumstance, then you are more inclined to act on certain things. For example, act on that mob mentality.
Oh, bro.
Act on
I would
that.
have had to be kicked out of the experiment because, like, okay, I've already been in a room naked with people. It's not as bad as you think because everyone's dick looks small. Like,
Good to know.
It's cold in the room. It's like no one's looking because they don't want to be looked at. Like,
Yeah.
Anyways, it's, but if I'm being hosed down by a fire extinguisher, that's hands, bro. There is no part of that that's not hands.
That's
like,
hands, bro.
I get I'm being paid. I'd tell them to keep their fucking money, and if they don't let me go, I'm gonna start hitting people with my bed.
I'd be like, bro, this is the experiment. I do whatever the hell I want, and you write down your notes.
Yeah, like fucking. Well, then again, we also, would go in pretty biased because if we understood, like, because we kind of understand the basics of
Yeah, they didn't.
psychology
they didn't know
as a
much
whole.
about it.
'Cause
Oh, I see.
they
what you mean.
had to have not been psych majors.
Yeah.
Because trust me, as a psych major, I would have said some shit.
Right. Right.
And,
But is that because you studied in this experiment?
well?
Ooh.
Okay.
Because
Look,
this is 1971 we're talking about.
even when we were learning about this from the get-go, I immediately was saying that, like, I'd start throwing hands.
Yeah.
Before I knew the experiment as a whole, I don't give a fuck what experiment I am. They could keep their money, keep everything. Like, I'm not going to push this way out. I'm going to fight my way out. You got me fucked up. Like, I'm not trying. Look, like, just the idea of being hosed down with a fucking fire extinguisher pisses me off. Or, like, shitting in a bucket. Anyways, if I was in that position, I would definitely be throwing hands because I'm overtaking people's shit. Like, okay, look, I can handle being blindfolded or maybe even a bag like put over my head because it's kind of hot. But, like if you're hosing me down or fucking like withholding food from me or oh god no, withholding sleep. Like
Oh my god, I can't function.
No, bro, I fucking ran at some fool with a machete like a month ago
Yeah.
because he was banging on my door and interrupting my beauty sleep. You got me fucked up. Anyways,
Oh, and that's a thing too. They were saying like the parents when they were interviewing their kids, they were saying like they look tired, like
yeah,
they're just
like
concerned.
what the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah, fucking crazy, man.
Man, I'd throw the money.
Yeah.
I'd throw the money back at
Me?
them, and if they still wouldn't let me go, like I would be fucking visibly violent. I'm not too sure I'd have a mental breakdown. I'd
Right.
like to think I have more grit than that.
Same.
Because of personal experiences.
You do not need to complexify
I'd like
that
Wait, we need to record a button. Don't complexify that. Don't. So I'd like to think I have more grit than to have a mental breakdown, but
You never know.
definitely would. Oh, who knows? It could cause some like repressed shit.
Yeah.
I would be. I was actually denied from jury duty because of that shit. So I feel like they sent me home from the army because of that shit. I feel like
You got cheat codes right
I feel
now.
like I'd be denied like the rights to participate in said study
you wouldn't be able
because
to because of that. Yeah.
I mean I'm saying it right now. I would 100% start getting violent.
Yeah.
So like
right. Oh wow, that's interesting. I, on the other hand, would absolutely be in it. My parents were together for most of my life.
Fuck off.
Yep, living alive.
Love you, Mr. Falcons.
And
and Dad, if you're listening.
and like yeah, I'm middle class. I'm a white dude. I would have totally been in there. And what I think I would have done if I was a prisoner, man, it's hard to think about that. I don't know what would happen to me. I don't know if I'd have a mental breakdown. I don't think I would. I think I've got more balls than that. Not calling this guy weak, but
It's like
I'm after that bag, bro. Like
no, like I'd keep telling myself it's about the bag, it's about the bag. But if I'm sitting there soaking wet, covered in purple fluid,
yeah.
because I was hosed down by
And
a
that's the
fire
thing. I
extinguisher.
don't think I would have signed up for it. Because I'm like, dude, I'm out here studying for physics. Like, I don't need to be participating in this shit.
Yeah, fair.
I don't care how much money
was,
I'm making.
I was declined. I declined a bunch of different offers because I
Yeah.
want to. Like, I was offered a job that would, pay me like a salary and have like timeshares and shit.
Wow.
But like, I that I still feel like I'd be settling.
Right. You don't want to get too comfortable this early, you know.
I
mean, don't get me wrong. It depends on what your own goals are. Like,
I would much rather, be more comfortable right now.
Yeah, right.
But I can find a balance between comfort and school.
Yeah.
As long as I'm
always
getting
balance.
the financial aid. So
Yeah.
foster
That
care.
Nice foster care
for the
financial aid.
win.
That's right. Son of a gun.
I'm flexing if you guys can't see. So day 6, the study's canceled. They had all the, no hard feelings. Now I have a question for you. Will you complexify
that for me.
the criticisms, the plenty of criticisms that this experiment had?
So, number 1, you know how earlier they said there would be no physical abuse? Technically, that was not violated, but they didn't take into account the psychological abuse. There was plenty of high psychological risk, especially to the prisoners' state of mind.
In my opinion, there's some physical abuse if you're
Yeah.
hosing me down with a fucking fire extinguisher.
I would consider stripping someone of sleep physical abuse. Because,
precisely.
like...
That's
yeah.
a gray area, because I like there has been like sleep experiments, not the Russian sleep experiment, not the
That's
Russian.
the first thing I thought of when you
Shut
said
the
that.
fuck up. There have been some sleep experiments done where in severe cases, like months long,
Mhm.
it has physical
Yeah.
problems. Like you can't go more than like half a year without sleeping. Like you'll die.
Yeah.
Like your brain will become so tired that it will stop sending said messages. Like it will
Yeah.
be so exhausted that it will stop telling your heart to pump.
Yeah. Which is so fascinating. Like it's like a computer, you can't leave it running forever. And man, that's what's so cool about like nature, bro. Like our brains, the thing we've had for 220,000 years at this point, are the same.
Yeah.
Like humans from 220,000 years ago have the same brain capacity as we do now, and we're capable of learning 20, 30,000 times more things than they did when they were there 200,000 years ago. But like that's how powerful this computer in our brain is.
I thought you were going a different route where you were going to say like, oh yeah, the body's like a machine, and I was going to be like, oh yeah, and farting is like the exhaust on a car.
Yes. But it's like, it's just a super complex machine. It's like, no wonder it took Mother Nature like billions of years to figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Too bad we're ungrateful.
Oh, God.
Happy Earth Day, everyone.
So, high psychological risk to the prisoners, and a lot of the things referred to in the study are personal, anecdotal interpretations of the behaviors of the prisoners. They did take questionnaires, and the guards were required to write reports every day. But again, that's all anecdotal.
Yeah.
There's no.
Well, I
there's
mean,
not much, it's all.
there was
it's
video.
subjective interpretation, especially because he was subject to the experiment himself.
Yeah. So it was deemed anecdotal because he was a part of said experiment. It wasn't deemed anecdotal because of the experiment itself. Because remember, there were also videos
Yeah.
and audio and cameras taken to record everything.
That's right.
So the experiment itself, if it wasn't tampered with, would be considered credible. But because he was a part of said experiment,
Yeah.
it's
anecdotal.
considered anecdotal.
That's right. Excellent complexification.
Oh, we forgot the... Fuck, we forgot to use the button. We have it and we're...
Well, you used it though.
Complexify that for me.
There. I told you I'm abusing it this episode.
Yeah, you have to. It's the first time.
I just need to hear that again.
Complexify that for me.
I will. Guards were externally encouraged to be tough. Like we said earlier, because he was part of the experiment, he was like, "Hey guards, like, you got to be hard on these prisoners, right?" And what was it? There was like more experiments done later on, like in 2002.
Yeah,
or
so
something.
in 2002 there was another experiment done where there was no like physical influence, and so everyone was kind of like awkward
They
in
were
their
kinda
spots.
chill with each other, like.
I mean, I'd like to imagine that our boy Zimbardo was like Kylo Ren, just more,
Yeah.
more.
He was probably like, I mean, I'm not gonna say anything, but the fire extinguisher is right there, dude.
It's like it's not even hidden behind glass.
Yeah.
You just grab it. Like, here, I took the pin off for you. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And that's where science is like, it's no longer science when it's that kind of, when you're trying to force results, because more than just the 2002 study have been done. Like in other models of this experiment where there's less influence by the experimenter, the results have been different and have been mostly peaceful relations between the guards and the prisoners, which implies, what does it imply? That instead of the situation being it implies that either the guards or the prisoners themselves as individuals are responsible for their behavior of either being highly rebellious, highly hateful, highly XYZ.
Now,
it would imply that it's not the prison setting, but it's the people within that prison setting that are responsible for it. This experiment implies the opposite, and it's an outlier.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say it right here. This is not a trustworthy source for psychology. It's just really interesting to learn about.
That was actually going to be my first question. Like,
Yeah.
is this a credible experiment?
No, not at all.
I agree.
It's highly
100%.
tampered with. And
Now,
unethically done. So, and that's the thing. If something is deemed unethical by the scientific community, they don't even look at the results of that experiment.
yeah.
Like a lot of the Nazi experiment things may have had some truth in them, but because they were just inherently ethically
Evil?
wrong, we just don't acknowledge them as real
that
science.
That was actually going to be my next question, too. I was going to be like,
We just brought up Nazis, bro. We were going
Yeah!
on shit.
we were one episode clearer.
Fuck.
Anyways, bringing it all the way around, podcast million years, baby.
Let's go.
Is this an ethical study? Just like the Manhattan Project? Because I would say...
Yeah. I mean, it was fairly, like, again, there was psychological abuse, but I'd say
the Stanford prison experiment itself is unethical, but it has, like, the possibility of being ethical.
Yeah, it was like borderline.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'd say it was the Stanford prison experiment was. Yeah, it was probably. I'd say it's unethical. I mean, you're
Yeah.
subjecting these kids to 14 weeks of really they're being
14
paid
days.
14 days. Really, they're being paid less than minimum wage. Like they're supposed to develop all or contribute all of their time to it. I'm like, there's not much ethics in that. I guess they're being compensated, but
Now, I've got some questions for directed towards us from the presenter of information, Michaela. She asked us, how would women have acted differently in this study?
So that's interesting because I was just doing a card, they're called, in my class. In political science, I was doing something about women in politics, and it felt like I was taking a gender studies class for that entire homework assignment, which is totally cool. It's a really interesting topic, but women. So what was interesting about it when I was reading about all this stuff for political science was that women are often, obviously they have less testosterone, right, in their system. And they were specifically in this one study looking at, what are they called? Hedge fund managers.
Yeah.
And they found that the male hedge fund managers, because they came into work with a slightly higher testosterone, like say they woke up one morning and were like, let's fucking get this bread, then they were more inclined to take highly risky behavior, right? And then when that risky behavior just so happened by luck to work out, because you got to remember, hedge fund managers, it's really gambling and luck.
Yeah.
So when that risky behavior just so happened to work out and they made money, that increases their testosterone levels. And then they take more risky behavior. And then they get more testosterone levels when that works out, et cetera, et cetera. But then when they looked at women hedge fund managers,
They were likely to take less risks.
way
correct?
less risk. Yeah. And what happened was, while the men got higher profits quicker, over time, the women had a much higher profit. So I think what I can gather from that and apply to this is, it's a bit of a stretch, but I think that if women were in this experiment, they would be more risk averse, meaning less likely to take certain risks. So I would think that Zimbardo, he would have had to push much more, maybe a little more, because there's nothing in that study I just mentioned that implies that one's more aggressive than the other. It's just like the guards, they had to take some risky, like, ethical steps to allow themselves to do some of the things to the prisoners.
I personally think women guards would...
women guards would be...
For the most part, for the majority of
harsh.
them, would be less harsh, but then you also have to account for outliers. There would be probably one or two that are pretty harsh.
Yeah.
And
Because me personally, I think that men and women are equally capable of like evil and stuff. It's just a matter of how easily they fall into those traps.
yeah, I bet you Padme wouldn't have fallen to the dark side.
My mama, Padme.
Jane Foster.
Jane Foster.
Mighty Thor.
Woo! Cannot wait for that movie, bro.
But and then I think if there were women prisoners,
that would have been more interesting.
The chance of rebellion would have gone down, but I believe...
Dude, actually, yes.
But
that's
I believe
part of another
that
thing I did.
There may have been more mental breakdowns.
Right.
Not saying that like women are inherently weaker, but just being subjected to that along with everything else that women have to deal with, just part of their life, whether it be their menstrual.
They're just more in tone with their feelings.
Exactly.
Which is kind of a benefit for them. They know where their limits are. The guys are like, no, like I can't cry.
So
in front of these dudes.
they'd rather bury it and then have like a big mental breakdown that results in them going home.
So I would say that there would be less outright mental breakdowns, but there would certainly be more
emotions,
expressed emotion, which
what?
might have ended the study earlier on because the dudes, they're trying to hide everything.
Yeah.
Women would be like, yo, this is dog shit. Like this sucks. Like this sucks. It would probably end it earlier.
I take back what I said. I agree with you 100%. I apologize if what I said seemed.
But anyway, so yeah, I get it.
Then the next question would be:
Just
how do you
real
think,
quick? Sorry.
How do you think people nowadays would react compared to then?
Just real quick for the women thing one more time.
Sorry.
I also read something about women confidence. So I think that a rebellion from the prisoners would have been a lot less likely, which would have made the guards a lot less strict too. Because there's been multiple studies that have done this, and I read about them in my homework, is that women are less likely to... So this is why you see less women in power. It's because there was an experiment done where they gave college students, right, men and women, a test. They took the test, were graded, were given back their grades, so they know how well they did on it. And then they were asked, okay, do you want to participate in this science competition, right? And I'm sure we all know the guys, regardless of their test scores, were more likely to say, yes, let's get in this competition. Whereas the girls, despite having the exact same test scores, like statistically, like of course there are outliers, but the lines matched up. They had both the exact same score roughly.
Like the same mean. Exactly,
the same mean score. And despite that, the women more unanimously said, no, I'm not doing the competition. So they
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. It's it could be a sociological thing, it could be a biological thing, I don't know. But I think in the prison experiment that would play a role. So women would be less likely to be like, yeah, let's do this rebellion. Let's invest into this conflict. I don't think that would
also,
be
we're implying that, the women guards would be just as harsh to the women prisoners, but
it's true.
I think that just as a whole it would be completely less severe because guys have this power god complex. It's just the fucking worst. I've seen it the women drill sergeants were so much nicer compared to the guy drill sergeants. Just saying.
It's true.
Now, another question from Michaela is would people react differently nowadays compared to then?
I think absolutely yes. Because with the advent of social media, it's a lot more likely that people are more empathetical today. Not only that, but men have less testosterone levels today.
Yeah.
So you're going to see less of this toxic masculinity.
Literally.
You're going to see more of this appreciation. Like, think about it. Like, because social media is so accessible, we see what's happening in Ukraine. We don't just read about it in a newspaper.
Yeah.
We see people on the battlefield. Like, we are more personally connected with people around the world, right? So that there's this general shift, I think, in at least America, towards like liberalism and like communal social efforts, right? That's why you're seeing a lot more people today that are like for socialism and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think that there's this more like communal and less like what's the word I'm looking for? Hegemonic like thing among men, at least, where it's like instead of I just think there would be a lot more cooperation. And as we said in the 2002 experiment, there was like they were mostly chill, if not awkward, with each other, and there was no like organization us versus them thing if they were picked randomly, right? So I think it would have been a lot more chill of an experiment, a lot more uneventful. But then again, I don't know prisoners. I don't know any policemen. So,
Oh yeah, that's fair.
yeah. It's
I
just a
know.
guess.
I know a SWAT lieutenant.
Oh, interesting.
He's a really cool guy. He's my cousin.
Right.
Yeah, he was born like maybe 5 hours after my dad was born. Same hospital, same doctor. It was pretty cool.
Sheesh.
Yeah,
That's
he was
pretty,
not-
dude. That's
He was
pretty
not
sick.
too happy when shit hit the fan.
Fuck.
Anyways,
All right. So
um,
I think that's
yeah.
all for today.
all right. Yeah,
Justin, nice to have you.
In my apartment.
That's right. That's right. It's my place. You don't know about it, though.
Oh yeah. We're in the bunker. Million years.
Million
Survived the
years.
nuclear apocalypse.
Yes.
Live from the bunker.
All right. Awesome. It's a good time. Fun thing
Always
to learn
fun
about.
hanging out with my boy.
That's right. That's right. Hope you guys enjoyed. I have been Cameron Falcons.
And I have been
Complexify that for me.
Justin Nelson.
There you go. That's good. All right. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Oh, and actually, I think by the time the next episode drops, people will be like doing finals, right?
This episode.
No,
When
no,
this episode
like
drops.
no, but by the time like the next episode
Oh,
drops,
finals will be done.
Finals will be done, right?
Yeah.
All of you students, good fucking luck.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best of luck, except for Cameron, because he doesn't need luck; he has skill.
That's
But
right.
Good luck, study hard. Don't forget to prioritize yourself. We love you all, podcast family, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Peace.